Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If Oscar shows up, he can take over. Otherwise, Ashley, would you call the roll?
Yeah. Okay, Mike Davidson,
Here.
Tom Dewitt,
Here.
Steve Davis,
Here.
Preston Elkins.
Here.
Okay, and we do have a quorum. Chris, I see Chief. Is anybody else on Zoom?
Brumley, if that's, I said it right.
Yeah, Ezra from Wilson and Company.
Okay, so they are presenting today. We have, the minutes of July 16 have been published. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So those minutes of July 16, 2024 have been approved. We'll be discussing items specifically on the agenda with possibly 3 exceptions. Our meeting will conclude with members, staff, and the public having the opportunity to comment. As a point of order, please indicate you wish to talk and you will be given the floor. And please respect that while someone has the floor, let them speak without interruption. We do have first up is Wilson and Company 60% project deliverables report with Graham and Ezra. So you guys take off. Go ahead.
Thank you. Graham is running a little bit late from his previous meeting, so he'll be on in a little bit. It's just the same presentation as yesterday, if you were at the water board meeting. So I'll start, and Graham will just jump in when he's free. So this is our 60% system study review and deliverable. Next slide, please. So our project scope was to create a report and water model to analyze the existing water transmission system and reuse systems with recommendations for improvements. Those recommendations will be prioritized based off of Portalis's goals and cost estimates, as well as input from the utility company to make sure that we're all on the same page with it. The 60% review we are providing a draft outline of the report, identifying strengths and weaknesses, as well as preliminary estimates of time and cost for recommended solutions, so we can refine on it later for the 90 and 100% submittals. Next slide. There we go. So according to the census data, there wasn't really any change between 2010 and 2020. There was a decrease of about 0.3% per decade. So using this, the existing water distribution system is sufficiently sized. We don't need to increase or decrease the scope of it. The water supply is the Ogallala Aquifer, also known as the High Plains Aquifer, that runs from Nebraska all the way down to Texas and New Mexico. Per the USGS, the average water level in New Mexico has decreased by 19.1 feet from the 1950s to 2019. Portalis is all the way over there where that little arrow is on the left in New Mexico. The Ute pipeline is under construction to supplement water supply in eastern New Mexico, including Portalis, with an estimated completion date of 2029, and that will supplement potable water for the city. Next slide. So using all of the meter data that we collected from the city of Portales with the help of Ashley and Chris in the utilities department, we found that the 2023 potable water use was 801 million gallons for 2023. I just said that. With the average gallons per capita usage is 115 per capita per day. Your top 3 users are the co-op, your residential sector, and your industrial users. In 2023, the wells pumped about 780 million gallons. There's a discrepancy in the totals due to different meter reading dates, and we actually received the updated meter values yesterday from Ashley and Chris, so we'll be including them. So what's going on is your customer meters are being read at the end of the month, while your well meters are being read at the beginning of the month. So that's most likely where that 20 million gallons is being lost there. So we'll update that for the 90% and just make sure. And then once we have all of that, we can also further verify if there is any loss in the system. But that'll be for the 90% submittal. Next slide. So using the existing system diagram, GIS information and the hydrant tests that were provided for us from the city of Portales, your pressures are ranging from about 30 PSI down south all the way at the airport hydrant to a high of about 54 in the southeastern area of town. Within town proper, not including the airport, you're seeing ranges between 40 PSI and 55 PSI, which is exactly where you want to be. There's no super high spots, there's no super low spots, so you don't need any pressure break zones, you don't need any booster pumps within the system, and it's right in that sweet spot of pressure. Next slide. We also, in our model, tested the hydrants that we used for calibration, just to make sure that everything was matching the data that we have from real life. Using the Roosevelt County fire flow of 500 gallons per minute, only one failed, and that was the airport hydrant in the south. The rest were able to reach fire flow along with the residual pressure that's required from Roosevelt County. We only tested 45 of all of the hydrants that we were provided with, and that was mostly just for calibration and just to get a general system overview. But everything in town is looking good. It's just because the hydrant at the airport is the end of the line, there's really no demand for it until it's needed. So that's why it's always so low. Next slide. So as stated before, under average demands, the system is working effectively with pressures ranging from 30 PSI down at the airport to 55 PSI. Your velocities are also showing as less than 5 feet per second. So that's indicating that there's no scour likely in the pipe system. And your PSI is less than 80, which is indicating a low likelihood of pressure-related breaks. Anything above 80, that's considered high pressure, and you're more likely to see a pressure break from that. Of the 45 hydrants modeled, only one failed fire flow requirements, and that was yet again the hydrant in the south. So taking all of this into account, your system failures are most likely to occur in locations with older materials or where the water line was installed improperly. So an example of older materials would be in your city center area where you have ductile iron pipe from like the 50s. And then materials that were installed improperly are the AC trunk main that's running through town that is currently sitting on just solid rock basically and next to the train tracks. So it doesn't really have any protection against vibration. Next one, thank you. So taking all of that into account, our existing system recommendations that we have right now are the replacement of the 24-inch trunk main. So that would take the existing AC concrete line that is currently just sitting mostly on rock and it's right next to the railroad. So it kind of gets bounced around and vibrated a lot and you're more likely to see breaks there. Replacing it with ductile iron and that adding a couple hydrants along the line as well as a couple gate valves to allow or butterfly valves to allow for isolation. That would be approximately 4 million. It would also include removing the rock and adding new bedding material. There's also the SDR line replacement in the east. The existing line is not pressure rated. It doesn't meet our New Mexico pressure rating standards. So that would be replacing the SDR line with C900 pipe material, and that would be approximately 1.25 million. We are also suggesting an additional 3 million gallon storage tank in the well field. And that's because right now your wells are just pumping from the bottom of the well all the way over to the Johnson Hills tank, which isn't giving them much time to rest and it's also stressing them out. So we're suggesting, like other engineering firms before us, to add an additional 3 million gallon storage tank at the well field. That price includes the tank itself, the earthwork, the pad, any structural work that has to go there, as well as a couple booster pumps to ensure that pressure can get back over to the Johnson Hills tank. Final upgrade that we are also suggesting is upgrading existing manually read meters like the ones at the Roosevelt County. You have a couple for the university as well as the Portales Public School System, upgrading them to new AMI meters, which are automatically read. So somebody doesn't have to go out and take a meter reading every month. The price is dependent on the number of meters installed and the size of the line. We're still working on prices from Baker Utility, but the ones that we're suggesting for upgrading kind of right off the bat would mostly be the co-op, as well as a couple ones for the school or the university in the area, just because they're some of the higher end users, and you just want to make sure that the readings are accurate. So Graham will now go over the existing reuse system and any upgrades there.
Yeah, so with the reuse system, currently it's one large loop that encompasses the whole city. It consists of 12-inch and 8-inch mostly, with evenly distributed hydrants along the whole thing. Next slide, please. The main issue that the reuse system is having is not necessarily with the outline or the layout of the existing system. It's properly looped and it's well distributed along the system. It's properly sized. The issue that it is having is at the wastewater treatment plant, where after treatment, the water is stored in a large pond and then pumped out from there. The open pond allows for some contamination issues where you can lose your class 1A status. And then if that's lost, then you're not able to utilize that the way you would like to. And then also the pump station after the pond, the storage pond, is undersized. So the biggest or most effective upgrade that we're proposing to remedy this is to upgrade that booster station. Doing something like a 3-pump VDF pump system would allow you to, or would allow your operators to have more control over the flows and the pressures that they want leaving the system. With that like VFD 3-pump system, you could easily hit ranges from 200 GPM for watering a single field all the way up to like 2,000 gallons a minute for high flow demands from fire events. Upgrading the booster station will unfortunately only fix the flow and pressure issues that you're having with the reuse system, and it won't address the contamination issue. To address the contamination issue, you would either need covered storage or a tertiary treatment right before the booster station. Earlier or later last week, we were talking with Chris and Ashley. We are moving forward with this report. We're going to expand that talking point and include an option for a tertiary treatment before the pumping station. Right now, the paper only includes the extra storage part. So next slide, please. One, if we do not want to go with upgrading the booster station or the tertiary treatment part, another option would be to pump straight from after treatment when it's still class 1A up to the water tower at Rotary Park. Currently it's offline, but if it were to be rehabbed, it could be tied into the reuse system, and that would give you both protection from contamination being in a sealed tank, and it would supply pressure to the system. The figure up on the screen now is what that would look like based off of our water model. You would see pressures ranging from like the 40s into the 50s for static pressure, and then you could see flows ranging from right under 1,000 GPM all the way up to over 2,000 GPM, depending on the fire hydrant and the distance from that water tank. Next slide, please. Alternatively, back with upgrading the booster station, if again the tertiary treatment is an option, or routing along the side of the pond and only using the pond for overflow storage, you could also construct another closed steel tank next to it. And if you pumped into that right after treatment, that would also stay class 1A and not face any contamination issues. And then the upgraded pump system could pump directly into the system. Next slide, please.
Okay. So another part of our report is going over and detailing the conservation efforts that Portales is doing. So the Water Advisory Board was created and holds regular meetings. Also, meters will be installed at the Johnston Hill tanks to track usage. So instead of compiling just only by like everybody's build meter accounts, those will be actually at the tanks, and then you can see your actual usage. As of May 2024, Portales has been on stage 2 restrictions, with restriction stages based on storage tank levels, not on pumping rates. Also, using only the residential data and the meter readings from that, your residential users are on average using about 145 gallons per meter per day, which is well below the US EPA US average of 300 gallons per day per household, if you assume that each meter is going to a household. There are outliers on your system. As we discussed yesterday, there's one user who's using about 6,360 gallons per day, as well as a couple of other high-end users. We recommend in that case that cost increases are based off of usage rate, as well as reclassifying if the user is in fact not residential, if they're something more like agricultural and they're using it for irrigation system, they should be put on an agricultural rate and not a residential rate. Next slide. Graham, if you want to talk about this one again.
Yeah. Currently, Portales treats 580 million gallons of class reuse a year, but in 2023, only about 4% of that was utilized for irrigation and other uses. There are other places that the reuse system could be expanded to, like the football fields, cemeteries, and the university. And that would raise it about 11.7 million gallons. Right now, that is only an increase from 4% to 6 to 7%. That's just currently what we have in the report. Moving forward with the report, we are going to identify other users and try to get that 6 to 7% as high as we can. A lot of this is just due to, again, that the pumping bottleneck at the treatment plant that's not allowing for regular end users to regularly use it. If you were to upgrade the pumping station or integrate the Rotary Park water tower, you could have a more reliable source of the reused water, and that would allow more end users to be able to tap into it more regularly. We're also starting conversations with the Office of the State Engineer to obtain their opinion on where this water can be used, and also seeing if they have any emergency use conditions to where we may be able to deep well inject or use that water to directly recharge the aquifer. We're also working with the Playa Restoration group that works in eastern New Mexico and western Texas. If playas are used efficiently and well maintained, those are also a very efficient way to take this reuse water and put it directly back into the aquifer. So moving forward with the report, this is a big focus moving forward in the report, is how to actually take this reuse water that we've after it's upgraded and after it's more of a reliable source to use, figuring out where we can use it and how we can utilize it. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So the other thing that we're looking at is community outreach. So as stated before, your residents are using on average less water than the US when you only take into account how much the residential users are like your residential usage rate. It might be 1/3 or it's one of your top 3 users, but when you look at how much they're actually using for your population, they're a lot less. So their usage can be decreased, but focus is needed on utilizing reuse more to offset water being taken from the aquifer. Your residents have been doing a really good job of just saving what they can, and that should be applauded, but it also, you can have them use less and less, but it's not going to offset your other 2 major users. So focus is needed on decreasing high water users like your industrial usage and the co-op. We are suggesting increased public education initiatives. So providing more information on the Ogallala Aquifer and what the USGS and everyone else is saying about it, continuing restrictions and penalties for overconsumption of water, highlight initiatives from the utilities department on system upgrades and what they've been doing good for things like quickly fixing water main breaks, upgrading the meter systems, adding the meters to the tanks, just telling people what's going on. Educational materials on water reduction for all system users, as well as workshops and programs to encourage water conservation and increase interaction with residents so everybody is on the same page. Next slide, please. So just in summary, thank you for your time. I know that a couple of you, this is a rerun from yesterday. Portales is located on the southwest edge of the Ogallala High Plains Aquifer, and depletion will affect the city disproportionately and sooner than other towns to the east. Existing water system is operating efficiently with minor updates needed to improve redundancy of the system. The reuse system also has potential for expansion and increased application, with only 4% of it being used in 2023 due to quality requirements and lack of consistent end users. If proposed users like the golf course, the school's football field, the universities, also their football field, if those proposed users are added to the reuse system, the usage will increase to 6%, saving an extra 11 million gallons a year. So moving forward, this is only our 60% report summary. We will propose more reuse applications to raise to the projected 6% utilization, as well as further refining any of the other suggestions that we have for the existing system and making it work for Portales, basically. That's all we have. So thank you again for your time. If you have any questions, please let us know. We'd be happy to answer them now, or if you have questions and would like to email them to us, we can also respond then.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I was not here yesterday, so I apologize if these were asked yesterday. So I do want to preface by saying that. But Ezra, I do want to ask on one of your slides, you had shown that the potable water usage was right at 790 to 800 million gallons. Is that correct?
Yes.
I do just want to say, I think Mr. Davidson, you had said that we were closer to the 900 million to the 1 billion range in past.
Yes.
So those are the numbers that I had calculated a couple of months ago. So I do want to say that it does look like they're confirming those numbers. So that is what I had originally thought. Graham, I've got a question on that reuse system at the water treatment plant. A couple of us were able to go on a tour and visit with Mr. Poe and Chris about that pump there. And I want to say, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. If we go in excess of 700 gallons per minute, I think he said he'd cavitate his pump. Is that correct? Would changing this booster station avoid that? Because are we not just going to deplete that pond by increasing the gallons per minute?
Not with that. Part of that booster system upgrade is also making the the way the pond feeds the wet well a bit more efficient. But especially with that pond being as large as it is, if you upgrade those pumps and you upgrade either the treatment or like that tertiary treatment, or you upgrade it to where that's more accessible for the pumps, then no, you should not have capitation issues
Okay.
if it's upgraded properly.
Okay. I know that we had kind of talked about trying to figure out how to update or upgrade the end users for our reuse system. We've talked about the golf course. I'm on the country club board, so we're trying to get that water to us. But the issue that we're having, I think, is permitting. So we're kind of waiting on the city to help figure out the permitting issues in order to sell reuse. I don't know if that's something that y'all have dealt with in the past, to making sure that we can sell to end users. Because if you're selling it to the schools, Eastern or the country club, you're going, I assuming selling reuse water is going to be on a different rate than potable water. And so I don't know if you have any experience in that. We may want some guidance on setting up rates for something like that, and permitting. Just a thought there. If you've dealt with any of that, I hope you have.
So we have a little bit. Normally the billing and that is more on the municipal side, but we are happy to help out, and we can review rates, and we can give our input on it for sure.
Okay.
When it comes to like the end user permitting process, that's part of this topic that we want to talk to the Office of the State Engineers about, and just get kind of more clarity on how that process works. So that's part of our plan going forward, and part of our discussions with the state Office of the State Engineers Office.
Okay, cool. Another thing, y'all had mentioned the Playa Lakes. We had actually been given that a presentation by EPCOR on that. That's something that they've done over in Arizona, to where they actually made a sports complex into a sort of a playa, to where you're watering that all year, and then it's actually leaching back into the ground there to help there. So that's not the first time that we have heard that. And then y'all had touched on the consumption levels. I've got a question. So we're in the stage 2 for the residential. And y'all kind of touched on this. I think you said it's the industrial user and the water co-op that is where we really need to focus our conservation on. I think we're pretty much doing all that we can on the residential side. But I do want to just point out for the water co-op, yeah, that is one customer, but there's like 1,900 residential meters there. So we're not talking about just one end user like an industrial load. They're then reselling that to a population of residential users. So to me, it would be less on the water co-op trying to make them conserve, because they are, again, just like our residences here. Now I agree they need to do their part just as we are in town. But I would think it would fall more on the industrial load and irrigation that we want to try and touch on. So just an update there. I'm sure you've heard that the water
Right.
co-op does serve that residential group, and I know they've had some irrigation and agriculture on there, but they're working diligently to get them removed. So we do have that going for us there. But I think that was all my comments and questions. I just wanted to make sure I got them out there.
Yeah, with the
Thank you.
co-op, it's more just making sure that the meters are reading correctly. I know that Ashley and Chris with the water department are doing a really good job with calibrating meters and just checking them, but because you have only 3 for the co-op, putting them
Mhm.
onto the like automated self-read one would give you more accuracy with your actual end usage rate, instead of just reading the little meter click out at
Right.
the actual ones. That's
For the
kind of,
mechanical meter.
yeah, for the mechanical meter.
And when we're looking at the report too, it does kind of read like the co-op is like a one solid user, but we do
Right.
understand that it is a municipal system all on its own. It
Okay.
does just kind of look and read that way, since it is all established by just 3 meters.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike, that's all I
Preston,
had.
you took care of one of mine. I was gonna point out the same thing on the co-op, is that I don't think we can categorize them as the same as the other people. The other thing I wanna bring up is yesterday, mentioned a third option, which would be shade ball treatment. I did do some research on there. It has been used effectively in wastewater treatment plants in several places. And just generically, Roosevelt County Soil and Water is heavy into the shade ball program. And I asked them about pricing. We've got that retention pond at the wastewater treatment is about 178,000 square feet. And the one in Industrial Park is about 161,000 square feet. And it takes 10 of those shade balls per square foot at generic price of 62 cents each. So you're looking at a couple of $1 million to cover both of those. And they are effective in reducing bromate and algae growth, in addition to reducing evaporation. And one thing we learned at that tour, you're talking about running out of water, is that's 11 million gallons in that pond, but they're also dumping 3 million every single
Right.
day to keep the pond from flowing over. The other thing I want to say, and it has nothing to do with anybody actually in the city anymore, but as a citizen, it's extremely frustrating to have 20 million gallons worth of water that has been processed and brought to a 1A status, only to have it turn around and degrade to another status that's going to make us turn around and have to reprocess it back to a 1A status. So the only reason I'm saying that is, as a generic resident of this community, and I know other residents are going to be extremely frustrated that we have to do that after paying in excess of $27 million for that plant. So
And I do have one more question on that. So thank you for reminding me on that, Mike. So essentially it's just that water has the stagnation of sitting there because it has nowhere to go. That's what's causing it to degrade, correct? So if we were able to push it out on the lines quicker, it would not degrade as much, and you can, once it's treated, you can just push it out.
part of it is a chemical reaction from sunlight.
So sitting in that pond is what's causing that.
Yeah.
With the algae growth, when it's stagnant, that's when the algae start.
Stagnant and exposure to sun.
So if we do increase that pressure and increase the number of places for that to go, in turn, that reuse system is going to help, well, be more efficient, correct, Graham?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Yeah, the shorter the retention time is in that pond, the
Okay.
more reliable that class 1A will be.
okay. Well, we at the golf course will take that water as soon as we can get it. So that'll help. That'll help.
And that's where like the whole permitting thing kind of comes into play. As it stands, the end users tend to get like kind of dinged sometimes for the usage. So that's why if it's 1B, it's not put out into the system because the City of Portales Utilities Department doesn't want to be in violation of their permit, which is understandable. The EPA is not very fun to deal with when you're in violations. So pushing it out faster and also working with the state office of the engineer to see if there's like a way to just ensure that the end users aren't dinged for something if something accidentally happens. Not that I think that the utilities department would do that. They're doing a really good job with what they have right now. It's just, there needs to be some more clarity on what the requirements are for reuse water, because it's kind of new in the
Right.
grand scheme of things. So.
And Ezra, can I ask on that? And I'm not saying that we want to do this, but if we were to just give the water to the schools, to Eastern, to the country club, would that avoid the permitting because you're not selling it and you're just essentially using it,
No.
you're consuming it through the line, or is it still the permitting an issue if you're giving it away?
It's still a permitting issue if you're giving it away.
Okay,
It's dependent on, like, so for the degradation, Graham can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the particulate matter increases, and they don't like seeing that because it implies that something might be growing in it. So if you apply it and there's someone gets sick from that, then that's kind of why, even if it's not paid for, nobody wants to get sick. So
Okay,
does
Yeah,
that make
one of the
sense?
tricky parts with permitting too is that the EPA takes 3 measurements. They take a measurement right after treatment, and then they take a measurement right before the distribution, and then they take another measurement at the end user. So, all 3 of those have to be in compliance, which is kind of tricky and deters people from wanting the reuse water in the first place. But if we do have set up end users, then it shouldn't be an issue if that water is regularly getting turned over.
So we're getting a little bit behind. Thomas, did you
Yep,
have
sorry.
any questions on this?
I only have one thing on the residential usage average. Is there any way to break that down to a region as opposed to comparing us to the entire United States?
Yeah,
Most-
I have a regional, actually I have my book right here. I can look really quickly and tell you what New Mexico's average is, if you give me. So the US average is about 80 gallons per person per capita per day, so per person per day. Let me see, where's New Mexico in my book? So this is also the estimated water usage from the 1990s in my book, even though it's from when I was in college. So, for example, an area, New Mexico, it says that we use on average 135 gallons per capita per day. It's probably decreased since the 1990s. Arizona, 150, because this takes into account the entire state's water usage per population. So that includes like irrigation, industrial use. It's not just residents. I can get you a more accurate number. Yeah, because then you have things like the Virgin Islands, which are at 23 gallons per capita per day. And that's just because you don't have that many people and you have a very small system. I can get you a more accurate one from the EPA and include it in the report for you guys, just so you have like kind of a benchmark for the area, because we do understand, we live here too. Arid states just kind of, we work different than than the rest of like the East Coast and everyone else, just simply because water is such a big deal out here.
If
So
we could do that, that'd be great. That'd give us a
Yep.
picture of our neighborhood.
yeah, I could totally do that.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I also have a study from 2020 from the University of New Mexico that has some numbers in it. I can also share that with you. 77.3 gallons per day per capita for New Mexico, according to UNM in 2020.
You're
So,
pretty close.
okay, so thank you guys for
Yeah.
coming today, Graham and Ezra. We
Mhm.
appreciate the presentation.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
if you have any questions, just let Ashley and Chris know and they can forward them to us.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for
so
the
much.
time.
Okay. So we have Chris, we have you down as a water update. Is that covered in the emails that went out yesterday?
Pretty much, if TJ forwarded you guys those emails that, pretty much, I guess, just a recap of the
Okay,
visit that they did.
okay.
And I didn't get that. If you can send it to me. Only one I got was their presentation yesterday.
Well, do you want to go ahead and
So.
do a quick
Yeah,
recap
I'll
on
just
it?
I'll just give you, what I gave you yesterday, so 26 feet is pretty much where we're steady out at the tanks. We're about 85% in just Blackwater well field, 85% operation. We've got 1, 10, 30, it's, down resting now.
And we don't use Sandhill. We only use Sandhill if we're changing the Lime Street tank. Is that right? What, if that's operating?
Lime Street's operating, we'll pick on those, tanks.
Okay, so we're still hanging around the 75 to
If you-
80%
if you
range.
Include Sandhill, yeah.
Okay.
We're still waiting on flow meters, they got lost and what was it?
Imagine
GPS
that.
or
FedEx.
FedEx. So, yeah, but we're having some issues with those, but hopefully third time's a charm and we can get those
Cool.
installed and we can good deal, hoping to get past that. So when we do, that'll be a big thing for us.
Yeah.
As far as in the distribution, I'm looking at meeting with the contractor on Thursday. They're gonna do a site visit on the 24-inch main that's out there on the highway where the barrels are. We've got to get them to come in. I need 2 balloon stops. And we're gonna try to get them to take out that, there's a crossover there, but it's kind of redundant because there's 2 other crossovers that tie the 24 and the 36 together. So we're gonna take one of those out, try to put a butterfly valve in to add more control over the system. Besides, there's a three-phase full circle silk clamp that's leaking on it, so. My guys, we can do the work, we don't have the time or the manpower to do it, so trying to contract that work out. We've started the fire hydrant program up again. We've got some finally on hand again. So they've just completed the one out there on Abilene and 7th, or 7th, sorry, right there by the municipal school building. They've gotten one done over, they added another one over on Ivy and North Avenue A. That was actually being fed off of a 4-inch lead, which is a no-no. So we have upgraded that from a 4 to an 8 feeding it to a 6-inch fire hydrant. So then we tied those 2 together, 4 to the 8. So there's more water control, water quality and flow, better flow over there in that area. We've got lead and copper that's coming up. As far as samples go, it's a 3-year, every 3 years, we have to get 30 participants. The house that's older than 1964, 65, 64, and they have to do a first draw test. So working, he just built the kits yesterday. We're gonna contact many, all 30 of them if we can. There's a couple that's in the department that we're gonna try to get those samples done. That's due by September. And then for the LCRR, which Johnny's working very hard on doing, we've got the lead and copper, the inventory for the lead and copper. We have to submit October 16th. We're working pretty hard on that, so I think we said we're at 48%. Well, the number we gave yesterday, so hopefully we can continue along with that. Okay. I think that's pretty much what I covered yesterday.
Okay. What about EPCOR's on here? How did their visit go? Or whatever they did?
Say, like I said yesterday, they pretty much came in 3 days and got 2 weeks worth of information from us. We did a site visit on each well. I say each well, we missed what, maybe 5 in Blackwater?
Yeah.
So, but they tried to visit each well. They did an assessment on each one of them. They had a electrical guy, safety guy, a well guy. They had GHD engineering on site. So they compiled a bunch of information on each site and took pictures, and same thing with the water distribution, same thing with the wastewater treatment plant, the reuse system, La Playa, the ponds. They did a site visit at almost everything that they could do. So
Are they gonna give you a report on what they think or?
so they're gonna take that information that was given and compile it along with the conditional assessment that we gave them via email and drop files, whatever they got, they're gonna compile all that, and then they will give us a conditional assessment report on, they're not gonna hide nothing from us, so.
Right.
Regardless if they acquire us or want to acquire us or not, they're still gonna tell us, this is what we found, this is what we think you could do better. I
Heck yeah.
took a bunch of notes while I was able to go.
Well, you had everybody there.
Yeah, so there's,
Cool.
I guess you didn't get that email?
Nope,
Okay,
but it looks like TJ just forwarded it to me.
okay.
So.
So,
Okay.
it's just a 3-day recap email,
Cool.
basically what it is.
I'm going to bounce around right here. I don't want to waste Steve's time here today. We had some people asking me about the city park trees. I noticed when I went over there picking up branches so the mowers and stuff don't get them. I go back the next day and there'd be a few hundred more literally the bark is just shedding off of some of these trees. I can't remember if it was Public Works or City Council meeting, but Steve had mentioned that you were gonna be removing some of the trees in the city park. And I was just wondering what the schedule for that was.
That'll be winter work.
Pardon me?
That'll be winter work.
Winter time? And are you gonna remove them as in sawing them off or digging them up?
Well, we'll cut down as far as we can, and then we'll dig the roots up.
Okay, and is there any program in place to replace those trees?
Right now, we don't, but we need to start finding some trees we can put back in.
Okay, and would the same apply to the cemetery?
They'd be all parks, cemetery and all the parks.
Okay, as far as cutting them down and replacing them? Okay. When you start to replace them, see me. I have some money for you, a small amount. Joe,
You kind of already have that wrapped up into, Clean and Beautiful that we
Okay.
talked about before.
okay, money?
If it is the same as what we talked about before,
Okay,
it's.
I can't remember what we talked about before. That's asking a lot.
Okay,
Well, we do have a donation of $1,800 to go to the city that needs to be given to you. At some point in time, it has to be designated for trees. So when you're there, please let us know.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get it to you. That covers that topic. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Ashley, are you able to present your finances in the time we have left?
I'm still trying to figure out the drinking water state water fund. I've reached out to many entities in regards to getting the information that I need on how the DWSRF fund loan is acclimated, and I haven't got any answers. I've even had Joe help me looking, and nothing is coming about. But as going through everything, it's looking like it's just a loan, but if we're considered as a severe disadvantage with the records that we've had have obtained, it can be a 40% grant, 30% loan that would be implemented from the NMFA, correct? Yes. And so, but that's after the fact of it being rewarded to us, and we won't know until we get the award letter. So after that, you know, with, I have a meeting with Liliana to be able to see if this is something that the city is going to be obtained, because it will be covered by water revenue as well as the environmental and infrastructure GRT taxes. So with any more information on that, once I sit with Liliana and see if we can hold this, and if we get consent from the NMFA for the debt, then that is a loan that we can obtain that will turn into a grant/loan.
How does the 40-30 work? Where's the other 30 come from?
I'm sorry, did I say 40-30? I meant 60-40.
Okay, I was like,
Sorry.
man, something's missing right there.
I think I was thinking because because it's a disadvantage, it was 30, and severe disadvantage. it
Oh,
was,
okay. 40.
40.
Don't mess with the numbers guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That don't work.
But as far as anything else, the other few grants that I'm actually working towards, the 2024 Water Trust Board, I just need a little bit more information to be able to finalize that, and we should be getting that grant at the end of the fiscal year. I'm not in the fiscal year, in December of 24. And then I'm applying for 2025 Water Trust grant as well for the well field and storage system, and that's in process as well. And everything has to be pretty much taken care of by September for almost all grants. We did receive the ICIP for the water storage system. That's 500,000 that will be implemented with the 500,000 that we have from the Water Trust Board as well. So.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what I have for that.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump ahead again and do a quick one. Is project numbers and accuracy in reporting. I originally talked to Sarah in January about this 20 million-ish for the new tank well field improvements, and had understood that it was 20 million and then 500,000 for Lime Street refurbishing. Later, that was corrected to 19.5 million with 500,000 Lime Street. Then it was stated that these funds were phased over time. Then the other day at the city council meeting, I heard a much larger number for the Lime Street tank and
That's for 2025.
okay,
As far as what our award letter that we received for the well field, it was 7.5 million. And then for the Lime Street tank, it was 500,000.
okay.
Moving forward, I still haven't received any information on what Mayor Miller said that he was gonna look into, because he said it was a phased grant. I haven't obtained any information. I even reached out to the Water Trust Board and they said what we were rewarded is what we were rewarded. Every year I can apply for grants every single year, but the reason being that we didn't get the allotted 19 million that was requested was because of the fact of how much can we qualify for with the debt that we already obtained.
Okay, my recommendation and my ask of the city, you guys deal with this so much. You're talking in a lingo that's above most of us. We need city finances for dummies. Is if you could put these like a single spreadsheet and no emergency, but say we're gonna spend 500,000 on this tank, this much for well field improvements, this much. I still am seeking something like that because I'm still lost on these finances. I'm not a genius, but I like to think I'm not a dummy, and I'm 100% lost. As of last city council meeting on, for example, what we're spending on Lime Street, I thought we were spending 500,000 on.
For 2024. It's
Okay,
500,000.
that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's the kind of things that I know that we need to know, but then I also think that the general public also needs to know. Because I've been telling everybody, hey, we're gonna spend 500,000 on Lime Street and we got 19.5 million to spend on all this other stuff. And so
Yeah, that's.
I'm doling out incorrect information.
Well, with the projects on how they stand, depending on what we request and how we request it is where it's gonna be implemented. So the 19.5 million was just too much for the city to be able to obtain for payments as part of the loan process back. So that's why we were only rewarded as much as we got, because we can only pay back the loan. It was what was it? 1.1 million that we have to pay back.
See, there's a giant miscommunication right there, or misunderstanding. I'm gonna absorb that as being on my part, because I had no idea that 20 million bucks was a loan. I thought that was a grant.
It's 90% grant, 10% loan.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
So whenever it comes to it, the Lime Street is a small project, but it's still over $4 million to pay for it.
I did not realize that.
Yes.
I thought it was 500,000 bucks.
No,
Yeah, that's
that's
what
just
we need.
what was
We need
asked for
Project.
prior us.
Okay.
That was just what was asked for.
So understanding what we're misunderstanding, if these things could be made clear in everyday citizen terms, it would be beneficial down the
I'm trying to
road.
do the same thing myself.
Okay, hey, we're with you then.
Yeah.
Liliana should be able to help us.
Yeah.
On her finances.
Yes,
Excellent.
like I said, I have a few meetings set up with her, especially with the DWSRF fund, my 2 or 4 technically, because I broke it down into 2 different years as well as 4 different projects, but it's still the same projects. And, you know, it's a lot for all of us to obtain all the knowledge that, you know, that has went out the door. So we're just trying to learn as much as we can and
Yeah,
as quickly as we can to be able to get everybody on the same page. So
let's work on it together. That's, we all need to understand it. I'm gonna,
So Lime Street would be how much
in total,
in total?
by 2027 estimated, it'll be a little over $6 million.
Okay.
I'm gonna bypass, if there's no objections. I'm gonna bypass low use water rates. It's not as critical. It's a concept that I wanted to talk about. Thomas, we had talked about a Class B driver's license. do you have enough time to present or to talk about what you're gonna say, or do you want to postpone that as well?
Well, I mean, just to put it out there, Class Bs are running, I don't know what's going on here, but y'all are all up. Class Bs, with the local school and everything, are starting out in that neighborhood of about $1,800. And I think what do you say, the max was about 2,500 if the whole kit caboodle. The permit and everything and the proctor at the end of the exam. And I think we ought to address this as a Class B, not just a CDL. People immediately go CDL, they go to Class A. And yeah, we'll lose people if we're setting them up with a Class A driver's license. We are definitely gonna lose them to over the road companies. But I don't think there's a lot of companies out there headhunting for Class Bs, but we need to do something there and bring that in so that we can get people trained. I don't know, maybe even a bonus program paid in 6 months and a year. But we're gonna do something to get Steve some more help.
Yeah, I think Steve would be the head of that discussion right there. If you can come up with ideas that would help you out, that's what
We're trying to come up with a contract where they gotta stay so long if we pay for the CDL.
I think it's critical.
Or they have to pay it back before, if they leave in that time frame or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was a conversation we had last time, and I see where they're coming from. We don't have the strength to support anything like that. I mean, it's a great idea. But even Chief said, you know, his deal is different because they got a different fund or what have you, but we need to have something like that. Or if we went with a bonus program.
Well, right
Yeah,
now,
well,
they're giving an incentive anyway when they get that CDL.
Mm-hmm.
Well, granted, but a Class B, we are doing a Class B, right, and not a Class A?
Correct.
Okay, I just need, as a truck driver, I just needed to get that clear to my head, because if we're doing Class As for trash truck drivers, we're gonna lose them to every over-the-road driving company
Yeah,
in the
we
world.
stopped several years ago getting Class A's because that's
Okay.
what's happening. They get the Class A, stay a week and they're gone.
Right. Yeah,
The way it works now is they get the permit first.
Mhm.
They have the permit for a while. Doug's agreed to do it for $1,400.
okay,
And then they get their driving test. We pay for the first one. If they fail that, they gotta pay for the next two.
Good deal.
if we could do it with a contract, that's great. I think we could incentivize by
Okay.
a 12 or 6 and 12 month
Let's keep after it.
bonus program.
Yep, let's keep after it. Come up with ideas, because it's critical.
TJ just messaged and says they get a raise in pay and incentive.
All right. Chris, do you have the next meeting scheduled for us?
Okay, the next meeting for you guys
This says August 20th.
is 20th.
Okay.
It's only weird because we only have one council meeting, but if we stick to the schedule, you'll be back on.
Okay.
schedule next.
We do have a section here now that we can discuss between staff and committee. Anything that came up that was not foreseen to put on the agenda. We also have a time that the public could speak. Did you come to observe, or did you?
See, I had no idea, I don't know if you guys published an agenda or not, but just seeing if anything was being done about our streets and all of our infrastructure there.
Okay. Okay.
And apparently not. It wasn't on the agenda, so.
Well-
That's good.
We can certainly address those things. We're knowing what have weaknesses in is water, streets, trash, and other things too. So, and unfortunately, I think streets are one of the most expensive of the batch. Is like talking about all this new cannabis money and things like that. And somebody asked me, I think it was Miss Austin, which which 6 feet do you want to pave with that money or something like that, so,
Well, I realize it's expensive and stuff, but we've got to get so far behind.
yes, sir.
Even in our equipment, I mean, you can go out and buy equipment, but you don't have any operators,
Mhm.
so it does you no good.
I do believe, and Mr. Chavez could correct me on this, but I think we did get a new piece of equipment here recently
Which
for,
one?
for patching.
Yeah, we got a new hot box.
Yeah, I saw him over here trying it out or patching some holes here a while back. So anyways,
It is in use. I've seen it around town.
yep. So hopefully some things will get a little bit better. So does any of the staff have anything they want to contribute today? Aside from what you,
CDLs, they get 3 tries. If they fail 3 of them, they gotta wait a whole year before they could try
okay,
again.
okay,
Fair
And then
enough.
we pay for the first one, which, cause it's $250. Second and third one falls on them.
Preston,
That's it.
Steve, Thomas, anything else? Okay,
Street sweeper, if we can. Are we anywhere with the street sweeper?
We got one going, but we gotta find time to use it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
you got a CDL, don't you?
No,
You do too.
not anymore.
Go get it. Go
Oh, wait.
take the test and volunteer to drive the street sweeper.
Street sweeper, is that gonna fall under a CDL? Is
No,
it air brakes or weight?
No.
I didn't think so. You can drive it.
I'll drive it. I'll absolutely drive it. You notice
Yeah,
how
I'll drive
quiet
it.
he got back there? All right, if there's nothing else, then, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Let's do it. Thank y'all.